So now who are we? So from the point of view of the medical expertise, we are experts in vascular disease. So it's including rare, low prevalence and complex disorders that affect different types and size of vessels. And we are in different groups. One on aorta, which is called HTAD, heritable thoracic aortic disease. Medium-sized artery, MSA. Small arteries, veins, lymphatic capillaries, with two groups, VASCA and HHT, and lymphedema with PPL. We think that about 1.3 million patients in the EU may be referred to our network, which is a lot. And we should increase the scope of the network by including probably fibromuscular dysplasia, which was discussed last time, and we probably will be included in the next call. We'll speak about that later. Now, how are we structured? So you saw the map already, 31 HKIP healthcare providers, full members from 11 countries. And you can see that there are some white areas here and here that we should try to cover to improve the healthcare in Europe, in global Europe. There will be some discussion about affiliated members. That was clear to me until the day before yesterday, because it was to be new centers in new countries that could not get the criteria that you were required to be part of the ERN, and now we'll hear more about that later on. But I think it's not very clear.
It's not very clear.
There will be a new call, soon, and I think the main aim of the new call, we'll go back to that again, will be to try to extend to new member states. That will be the priority. And the role of all of you, all of us, is to disseminate what we do in the ERN in the national networks. So the structure is this one. We have the 5 rare disease working groups. Each of one has a chair and a co-chair, medical chair and medical co-chair. There are interactions between the group if necessary. There is a patient group, and this patient group has 1 chair and 5 co-chairs, because there is one devoted to each of the rare disease working groups, which ensures that there is communication of all the information to the patients, and showing that the patient group is in the middle of us, of our interest. And there are some transversal working groups, patient registry working group, e-health and training and education, which at the beginning are linked and probably will be autonomized soon. Ethics working group, which is led by a patient representative. We will speak about that later. Communication working group with Marine. The governance, how are we organized? We have the board that we will have this afternoon, which is required by the EU, which is 1 representative of per HCP member, and it has to be gathered once a year. That's a requirement of the EU. And it is deciding. You can vote and decide. There is the General Assembly, which is what we are now, and we try to have both at the same time because it's difficult to have everybody in the same room, and even more difficult when the room is small. We have there more HCP and patient representative, and it's once a year at board meetings. To have some more effective group, we have a limited number of people in the council, which are the working group chairs plus the coordinator, and we are meeting every 4 months, all related to needs. And then we have the 5 rare disease working groups, the EPAG, and the 5 transversal working groups that we saw already with the organization that I described before. feedback to the council. There is also an advisory board that is not really set up actually, so we have to think about it. And I will ask for your input for that. We will discuss that later on. And there is some other ERNs representative because there are some interactions between different ERNs with some patients between two ERNs and some disease between two ERNs. To let you know that there are also inter-ERNs working groups, which is interaction between ERN skin and us, for example, but also inter-ERN working groups, which are gathering in Brussels with coordinators of different ERNs, and that was the case last Wednesday. There is a monitoring and assessment and quality improvement working group, and I'm part of that. Ethical and legal issue, Romain Aldeverelt, I'm sorry if I pronounce it not well, is part of that, and research, and Xavier Jeunmaitre was part of that. IT and data sharing, knowledge generation, cross-border healthcare, and Brexit. We were very concerned about Brexit. You saw how many people we have from UK in our network, and everybody from this community of rare disease was thinking that how can you avoid that? Anyway, what are our first year objectives? So this is the action plan. I'm not sure that we are going to describe everything because we are going to go through that again and again. But there is CPMS, Clinical Patient Management System. There is different patient pathways. There is a cross-border mobile application. There is pieces of knowledge. There are registries. There are clinical trials. There is availability of conference on YouTube. There are definition of clinical outcomes. There are recommendations. And there is communication. And this is what we said we will do when we answered the grant. So how do we reach the goal? What are the tools we have? Oui? Faut que j'accélère? First is funding. Funding, and we thank Filière Fava Multi, which actually was funded by the DGOS, because to be able to answer the call, we had to hire Marine, who you know was very effective, because we succeeded, and this was possible because she was hired by the Filière Fava Multi, and the aim of the Filière Fava Multi was to improve the European presence of France for rare disease. And now this is the first year co-funding. You want to speak about that? La slide d'après. And you see that we have 200 key euro given by the EU, but this is just 60% of the money we have. So we have to provide some additional money. And the additional money has been provided directly by the DGOS, or 60k euro by the Filière, or 14k euro by my institution. So which means that it's not enough to get the 200k euro, you have to find a way to get the other money. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to do that. Is that you now? So we are changing.
So the EU co-funding we received is for the human resources, so the VASCERN coordination team, and also the meeting organization, such as this 2-day seminar, also for communication, translation, and e-health tools, but we will detail this later in the board session. And other tools we have are the virtual communication platform that we use. So video conferences, the EU provide us with the European Commission provide us with the access to WebEx, which is already used by all our working groups for the monthly virtual meetings. And then we have the ERN collaborative platform for members that we use for storage documents, for news, forum, shared agenda, and also library of documents. So this should be used more and more by all of the HCPs, and normally you should have already the access to this. And also soon we will use the clinical patient management system, but this will be further explained by the European Commission later. So these tools enable us to have this medical knowledge and expertise traveling rather than the patient, which is really the principle of the ERN. So this is an example of a WebEx call, a monthly virtual rare disease group, a discussion on patient pathway. And then we have our IT platform. So this is just some screenshots of the use of this IT platform. So we encourage you to go in this intranet, in the collaborative platform, because we can post news. We have a shared agenda when we will put all the links for the video conference call. All the minutes are updated there, and will be all the documents, and also opportunity to reduce the emails with this. So it's accessible via the homepage of the website. And for implementing the CPMS, we have answered a new call for e-health in September, which is for the aim is to hire 2 people which are IT help desk for this clinical patient management system to help us with this. So it's we expect an evaluation of this proposal by the end of the year, and then we will know the decision by February 2018. So it's EU co-funding, 75%. So yeah, this is the next step for the use also of the CPMS system.
I just want to make a comment about that, because this call was answered exactly the same way by all the ERNs, just to tell what is the spirit and the coordinator member, the coordinators of the ERNs. The IT group wrote the answer to this call. We just had to change the name, or almost that, so that everybody, each ERN has the same amount of money, because we feel that we are not in competition but working together for the same thing. So this is rare enough to be underlined.
And then we have all the communication tools, so the website, the Twitter, and we encourage you to follow and tweet also today, and follow all the news on these different means of communication, and also the newsletter, monthly newsletters. So what have we done since the launch in March? A lot of meetings. So this is just to show that the frequency of meeting is monthly for the working groups, virtual meetings. Council meeting, it's every 4 months, and the board meetings every year. So we had the first council meeting in Vilnius, and the second virtual in July, and the third one will follow before the end of the year. And rare disease groups have been having the monthly virtual meetings, including also some face-to-face meeting, for instance, for HHD in Dubrovnik International Congress, or HTAD in Barcelona. And so there are all the monthly virtual meetings going on, and also transversal working group started the monthly virtual meeting to work on all these work packages that we will present you more in detail after. And the patient group also met have a virtual monthly meeting every month, and also met 2 times in Vilnius and also in Budapest during Horadis Congress. So this is the roadmap that all the working groups is following during the monthly meeting virtual, in order to work on all this work package that we are working on. And this will be presented more in detail after. So now we have a question session and answer.
Where are we by the time?
Claire Shovel in London. I don't have a question. I just want to congratulate the team on setting up this incredible body, which we're all part of. We can see that there are teething issues. There's a lot of bureaucracy, but we are very grateful to you for getting this off the ground, getting the funding, getting us coordinated, Guillaume. So thank you. And thank you, Marine, for all our help.
Because it's a time for saying thank you. I want to thank especially Marine, because she is the one who has been dealing with all the administrative issues and all the difficulties we have, even within our institution, try to get the money out and to pay for you to come here and organize all this. So Marine, thank you. And what is the time?
9h19.
So we are ahead of schedule. So we have time for questions or remarks or whatever. Sure.
So I just want to, of course, join Claire on the congratulations. This is really great, and I hope that the face-to-face meeting here will put us even more tightly together. Because one thing that I feel, at least for us, it would be very nice that the intergroup, there would be some action also between the groups, because I think we can learn, especially from HHT and lymphedema, since we have those patients. It would be nice to, I don't know how to organize, but it would be something nice. Then I had just one question, because you mentioned there these films of congresses, and at least we don't feel how we could do or film to have this on web, but there's this Learn society in the United States, and they have web streams, and they actually interview somebody, and then they post it. Could we do something like that? And it's in the funding. I saw that something like this could be perhaps paid by the EU grant, that one group or one person, HCP, would be interviewed in a layperson's way. So it would not be like the regular meetings and presentations that we do, but really directly to the patients. And that's what Learn does, and I think it works very well for them. Once a month they have this kind of a broadcast on the web. And then another question was for the CPMS. So there will be 2 IT persons. So is it so complicated for us? I don't know. What do we do with those people, and what will we be unable to use it?
So for the CPMS, I will let a specialist answer that if he wants to speak now or later, because there is something about the CPMS later on, and there is later in the program, and at lunchtime there is a demonstration. So you will see if you are able or not to deal with this specific. The help desk, because the idea is that it is not as simple as we feel it could be. So there are some different issues. There are some technical issues, because when you put some hospitals together with the firewalls, it's not simple to go through that. There are some practical issues, because doctors are not always very, how to say, I don't know, easy with the internet and everything. So, and there are some legal issues, because when you do this kind of consultation across borders, who is responsible for what is the consent of the patient, which kind of consent should he sign? He should sign a consent for Europe, but he should sign a consent for your country, your specific hospital. Anyway, there are a lot of issues there. And about your idea of interview, you will see that that's one thing that we propose later on in the Pills of Knowledge, because I think this is a good idea. But what you said is to have it regularly every month, maybe. That's a good idea, and that was actually the idea of having some regular monthly rare disease work group meetings, because every month, I mean, it starts a dynamic. So this is the same idea. I think it's a good idea. Martin?
I don't know if you already know this, but looking at the funding scheme, it looks like a very tight budget, and it's presumably it's mostly used for communication. could we expect funds for other things we want to do, like setting up databases, registries, and things like that?
Do you want to answer that?
A call for registries was issued last year, so the 5 ERN have just been awarded with grants for build these registries. Well, they didn't sign the grants yet. In the future, there will be Horizon 2020 call, and I'll say something later on my presentation. And there will be new CEF money, which is the money for IT system, and and other indirect funding.
There's been this story of a grant for registry, that was competitive. And so there has been, I don't know how many, 21? One-third the 21 applied. And there was 8 who were taken out directly because there was one member of the consortium who was not HCP. That is true. And then you had, on the remainings, 9 who were above threshold, but there were money for free at the beginning, which was increased to 5. So there are 4 who should have been funded, who were not funded, which were not funded. So there are 5 funded. And the idea here also, as I said, in the cooperation spirit of the ERNs, is that maybe those people who were funded for these registries, which are facing the same difficulties as the other ERNs, are going to do work for everyone. So they should maybe share their money, and that's the idea. I don't know if it's going to truth, but that was said and discussed the day before yesterday, so that people could be working for something and not everyone reinventing the wheel in his own part.
Elisabetta Buscarini. In the latest year, Marine, you have been probably the most precious, or at least one of the most precious people to get these results, because you were able to follow up every step very cautiously and very actively. And in the same time, you have been probably the most feared people, because our daily activity was to discover how many mails I have got from Marine. And it was really a job. It has been really a job, because I have uncountable mails in my mailbox from Marine. So what I really ask that could be very important and very helpful, to have a more structured communication way in the context of this activity. That is, who has to do this activity, when, what is the task, who is the people interested in this activity, a sort of schema in every mail, because otherwise we have to read your very important, of course, but very lengthy mails, full of recommendations, full of things that we haven't to miss everyone. So to study a more structured communication.
Yeah, well, the idea is that we will use more and more the collaborative platform to reduce the amount of email. And then the idea is also that the chairs of the group are more the first contact, and then they disseminate to their own group. So normally the amount of email to all the members will be, and is quite reduced now after the whole application time and so on. So I don't know.
So what is going to happen is that you are going to have less mails from Marine and more mails from your Rare Disease Working Group chair. So I'm not sure this is better or worse, as you have to decide about that. But the idea also is, as Marine said, to use more and more IT platform, which was not working at the beginning, so that we can share documents and you can go there when you want. We just, Bart.
So the last week, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I guess you're getting email every time somebody is putting a document on the system.
This is a new feature. This is a new feature. Everybody who is sending something on the IT platform you receive email.
No, I think you can subscribe. Now you can subscribe or unsubscribe to some options, but this we can maybe see with the Commission IT person. We will present the collaborative platform later. Anna, do you want to say something about that? Or?
Let's wait for the guy.
Yeah, you can unsubscribe to that notifications.
I think this is also a baby which is trying to be more and more effective. So any feedback from you would be beneficial from them.
Yeah, in my emails, the display of the messages that we get, the display of the messages that we get from the platform, I can't read it. It's I don't know if other people have the same problem, but yeah, the ones that comes as
strange.
yeah.
It's everything on the left side like that, so it goes kilometers.
So there is a problem there to be.
I think reducing emails is a really good thing because we already have hundreds in general. But actually, if we are putting things on the system, as in the communication platform, if there are things that we need to action, we are not going to be able to know what it is we need to action. So there has to be some kind of direction as to what we need to do, not just kind of get hundreds of emails from the system.
But I think the main benefit of using the IT platform is that the email you will receive is go to the IT. This is short. And what is frightening when we receive the emails from Marine is that you have 2 pages you have to read because it's necessary.
Thank you. I have a couple of comments about 2 topics. Well, the first one is inter-ERN working groups, because I find it interesting that there are transversal working groups sharing the experiences among the different ERNs. In particular, we are from the e-health working group, so interested in the data sharing and IT and research. So is there any feedback about that? I mean, some outcomes of the inter-ERN working groups that we can share? And then the second topic later on.
So the first result of the IT working group is the answer to the call that we did about the CPMS health. So that was the work of the IT inter-ERN working group. That was the first work of this. So it was very effective. And now they are going to do something else. But for the present time, that was the main result.
Yeah, thank you. So in the future, we will get feedback from that work and.
About these inter-ERN working groups, maybe I was not very clear about the structure. Usually it is the coordinators of the different working groups, which are, of the different ERNs, which are gathering together, which means that there are no, each ERN can be represented by one person. And usually this is a coordinator. And then it's a role of the person who is in this working group to diffuse the information. And there should be some diffusion of information from the inter-ERN working groups to the coordinators, and the coordinators will diffuse the information. That's the way it should be working.
Okay, thank you. And the second topic is about the CEF call. So we heard about future initiatives, future calls. In addition to the, let's say, IT staff and supporting activities, will there maybe be any support for developments and research about the IT tools for the ERN?
So the money that we got from the EU can be used for some communication, and as long as the e-tools are communication, maybe we can use the money of the EU for that. There is no specific funding that I know which is scheduled to happen soon. Anna is saying the same thing. So for the IT development and this kind of stuff?
There is the central money that the European Commission is using to develop the digital infrastructure. And later on, for now, it's the IT platform, and then it will be also hopefully tools for research, knowledge sharing, and all these building blocks will be added. And then there is the local money that each ERN is getting through the CEF called for that can be used to build also to HR funding, so to have IT people working locally, and also eventually to buy or to develop some tools that can be complement to the IT central platform.
Yeah, I feel the urge to, as the data geek, as one of the data geeks, there's more. I feel the urge to add my 2 cents on the sort of relying on the central IT systems and things handled by people somewhere. I would like to make a plea that you also work, for instance, in your own organizations and try to influence them to have their IT systems, like in healthcare providers, be good for ERNs, for data sharing, and etc. So it's something we do. I will tell a little bit about that later on within our own hospital. But we're trying to influence that, because then you have a more grassroots. So do not only depend on central IT, etc., but also work at the base, your own organization. That would be my plea.
To be sure I understand properly what you're saying, the IT platform we're going to use is just a communication through the ERNs. And what you're stating, or what you're speaking about is about registries and this kind of stuff. And probably it's not exactly the same thing. Did I misunderstood?
No, you're exactly right. But I always fear a little bit that people depend too much on what central on the cloud or anything outside that will happen for them, and sort of start relying on that. And it's very good to know that you can actually do something at the base as well. And that's maybe even more important.
Keep the foot on the grass. Oh, it's starting. The question is good.
I fully subscribe to Marco's remark, because the dream for you one day is that you do not have to fill anything online regarding patient forms, ECRF and registry forms, minimum data set in the VASCERN consortium. So the goal is that tomorrow there will be direct connection between electronic patient files within your hospital and with the European centralized infrastructure. No work for you, that's the goal. So really you have to discuss with your hospital to make the door open and interoperable, at least with their future system and the European central system. That's very important. The second thing is that we should, within VASCERN consortium, work probably closely between eHealth tool and registry issues, because they are really connected, especially if we are considering the questionnaires, auto-questionnaires for the patients, and systems that will also feed the clinical database. So it's important to have cross-discussion between this working group.
So I don't know about healthcare systems in other countries, but in our country, the Netherlands, it's really a disaster, these IT systems in hospitals. And I don't think it's the first objective to do this kind of thing of data sharing, just getting the institution working.
Yes. Can I just ask a question that I've been asked? Because in London at Imperial, we have been setting up prospective data capture tools within Cerner, which is the IT platform that we use at our institution, with the intention of that dovetailing more widely with others. But I was asked to take a check of how many people would use Cerner, how many would use other platforms. And I think one of the problems is we all use different platforms which don't speak to each other. And so I think a very early step would just be to capture which platforms are used at the different HCPs. Is that being done?
I think Marco is going to speak about that later on, all right? Good. He's the right guy in the right place.
I think it's a huge one is each hospital, each time does the whole
Can you give him microphones, please?
find out what the best system is. So what I'm seeing happening is that every hospital, every time does the whole exercise again of trying to find out which system is the best system. So I'm not sure that I completely agree that there should be not a little bit more pressure from central to say to the hospitals, these are the systems that Europe is recommending and that's the one you should use, rather than having it from the bottom comparing each patient record system by every hospital, and they spent millions on just comparing systems.
Muriel Elizevich, Guillaume, what kind of interface do you have with the ERN coordinators group, which is chaired by Marizu Scarpa? Yes, about your ERN. What kind of interface with the...
We had a meeting the day before yesterday during 2 hours with all the ERN coordinators, and he is the coordinator of the ERN coordinators. So we have direct relationship. I don't know the meaning of your question, but okay. There is good circulation of information. If that's the...
Maybe I should answer the comment here. So it's and also the what was mentioned there. I will indeed talk about it later a bit more, if I can. There's so many ideas in my head. What is so from my perspective, it's not the system that any particular system that the hospital chooses or decides to work with. It's the requirements that you put on the providers of those systems. So if you say you have to comply with standards that make our system interoperable with other systems, then it doesn't really matter which system is used. You just put that requirement on there. And that's also the take-home lesson I'd like to give everyone, is it's about what you ask these system providers. It's what you tell your hospital that they should have so that you can work together. And then many systems can work. And that's also, we're a free market economy, so we should embrace that, but then put the right requirements on them. And that's sort of these groups, you're defining those requirements now because you need them.
Yeah, as long as the words are defined, they can be used by everybody. Is that the meaning of your